Winning the Balon d'Or means you are the best football player in the world, but not necessarily the most loved, because for every winner the footballing world adores, there's another who they absolutely hate. And starting with Luis Figo, who is arguably the most hated winner on this entire list because he won the Balon d'Or right after completing the worst betrayal in football history. Now, swapping the famous blue and red of Barcelona for the royal white of Real Madrid is always going to evoke rage among football fans, especially for those in Barcelona. So it's unsurprising that the 2000 Balon d'Or winner, Luis Figo, is considered one of the most hated players on this list. But he wasn't always hated. You see, before his shock move to Madrid, Figo epitomized what it meant to be a Barcelona player. He had dyed his hair in blue and red, sang anti-Real Madrid chants with the fans, and on the pitch, he was nothing short of incredible during the 99-2000 season, providing 15 Champions League goal involvements in 13 matches as Barcelona marched to the semi-finals, but they were unfortunately knocked out by Valencia as Real Madrid clinched the Champions League that year. This heartbreak must have been too much for Figo, because after having the best season of his entire career and still watching his club's rival lift European silverware, Figo did the unthinkable and joined Los Blancos for 62 million euros. This transfer was among the most controversial moves in football history, and overnight he went from the most loved man in Barcelona to the most hated. As the year came to an end, Luis Figo was named the Balon d'Or winner primarily for his performances in Barcelona, but lifted the trophy as a Real Madrid player, and this just stung even more for the fans. The hatred for Luis grew, and every time he returned to the Camp Nou, the boos, banners, and abuse from Barcelona fans only got worse, until this reached a boiling point in 2002 where, during an El Clasico match at the Camp Nou, Barcelona supporters hurled coins, glass bottles, and even a pig's head at Figo as he went over to take the corner. The abuse was so vicious that riot police had to be sent to that area of the pitch to prevent the situation escalating, as there were fears Figo would receive physical pain. To this day, his betrayal of Barcelona makes him one of the most hated Balon d'Or winners in history, and despite leading Barcelona to 2 La Liga titles, it's still unsafe for him to just walk around in the city because of the violence he may receive. But who says you can't play for Barcelona during the 90s and Madrid during the 2000s and not be loved? Because, believe it or not, Ronaldo Nazario did the exact same thing, but is looked back on as one of the most popular winners of all time. Now, R9 actually became one of the youngest ever Balon d'Or winners, as he won the award in 1997 playing for Inter Milan, and similarly to Figo, he had spent the first part of that year playing for Barcelona, which is where he announced himself as the best player in the world. But it's not this 97 Balon d'Or victory where he received all the world's love, because after continuing to impress in Italy for a couple of seasons, the unthinkable happened. During a match against Lecce in 1999, he ruptured a tendon in his knee, leaving him out for the entire season. After 5 months of recovery, he attempted to make a return to football, but it only took 7 minutes before his knee literally collapsed, with doctors saying it is one of the worst injuries ever seen and doubting whether he could ever kick a football again. But after 17 months of recovery, he was finally cleared to return to football to play for Inter late in the 2001-2002 season, where he played the final 5 matches of Inter's Serie A campaign, scoring 4 times and assisting once. And while his return was heroic by itself, things only got crazier because it also meant he was able to be called up for that summer's World Cup, and this is where he gained the love of the entire world of football once again. The Brazilian enjoyed one of the greatest international campaigns of all time, scoring 8, including 2 in the final, as the Samba Kings cruised to their 5th World Cup triumph. But the worldwide Ronaldo love affair wasn't just down to his goals and accolades, it was the style in which he won them too. He'd use a combination of flip-flaps, step-overs, and body feints to light up the beautiful game on the world stage in a way that it had never been done before. Despite his injuries, he embodied Joga Bonito flair. The Inter at Brazil man dribbled past opposition defenders with swagger, finished past goalkeepers with ease, all while rocking the most iconic haircut in football history. And after his record-breaking World Cup campaign, R9 became a Galactico, as he signed for Real Madrid for 46 million euros, and his goals showed no signs of slowing up at the Bernabeu. He terrorized La Liga and Champions League defenses during the first half of the season, and by the time of the November Balon d'Or ceremony, R9 practically had his name written on the famous golden ball. And of course, that is exactly what happened as fans rejoiced, seeing Ronaldo Nazario once again crowned as the best football player in the world. But whilst Ronaldo Nazario is one of the most loved winners in history, Michael Owen doesn't get that same recognition because despite being the youngest ever Balon d'Or winner, he still receives hate for it to this day. You see, unlike R9, the Liverpool striker didn't possess the flair of other greats of the time. He used pace to get in behind opposition defenses and relied on composure to slot the ball past goalkeepers. Now, don't get me wrong, Owen's 31 goal involvements during the 2000-2001 season were pivotal to Liverpool's League Cup, FA Cup, and UEFA Cup victories as they picked up 3 trophies for the year. But despite his efficiency and local reputation, Owen wasn't scoring against the world's best opposition. The forward's UEFA Cup goals came against Porto, Roma, and Slovan Liberec, while his League Cup and FA Cup strikes were against Fulham, Tranmere, and Arsenal. Meanwhile, Liverpool were not involved in a meaningful Premier League title challenge, and there was no international tournament to elevate Owen's reputation. So, how did a dull English forward from the north of England beat off competition from Raul, Oliver Kahn, and David Beckham to win the Balon d'Or? The disgruntled trio was insane during 2001. They put up incredible individual campaigns where they won La Liga, the Champions League, and the Premier League, respectively. And surely Champions League winning hero Kahn was more deserving of the Balon d'Or than Owen, a player who didn't even feature in the tournament. But if Owen's Balon d'Or was unpopular at the time, it has even fewer defenders today, as Owen's snaky move from Liverpool to Real Madrid, followed by his later stint at Liverpool rivals Man United, lost the backing of his home club supporters. And now the club at which he won the Balon d'Or no longer consider Owen a club legend, but instead a traitor, with the forward being booed relentlessly on his returns to Anfield with Newcastle, Man United, and Stoke City. And then, if Michael Owen couldn't get any more disliked, his post-playing career as the world's most boring pundit has been enough for almost all supporters to dismiss that he was ever considered as the greatest player in the world. But surely, no new supporters have today dismissed the brilliance of the 2005 winner, because Ronaldinho is remembered for his effortless playing style, endearing personality, and iconic image, making the Brazilian one of the most loved footballers in history. But what exactly made this season so special for him? Well, in 2005, Ronnie was a mesmerizing 24-year-old who led Barcelona to their first La Liga title in 6 seasons. The magician scored 26 goals and provided 24 assists on his way to being dubbed the world's best player. But the Brazilian's game was so beautiful that stats do not do it justice. Like fellow Brazilian Ronaldo Nazario, Ronaldinho's Joga Bonito flair represented a playful, artistic approach to football that captivated supporters globally. So, whilst Michael Owen played with a face that rarely showed emotion and a style that felt mechanical and robotic, simply the dryness didn't excite supporters. Ronaldinho was the total opposite. His carefree grin lit up the pitch as he juggled the ball past world-class defenders. Footballers who are so unserious and blissful rarely become the most deadly attacking talents in the world, but Ronaldinho's 04-05 season might be the exception to that rule. In between elastico flicks, roulette spins, and no-look passes, Ronaldinho produced some serious final product. He scored an iconic Champions League knockout goal against Chelsea, with Stamford Bridge silently watching as Ronaldinho twisted and shimmied before pulling off a unique toe-poke finish. But that wasn't the only moment of genius the Brazilian produced that year, because Dino's dipping and swerving free kick against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu prompted Madridistas around the stadium to rise out of their seats and applaud the rival superstar, making him only the second Barcelona player in history to receive a standing ovation from the Real Madrid fans, the only other being Diego Maradona. And looking at fans worldwide, well, they just adored him as they watched the Brazilian's Nike commercials, skills, and goals on YouTube, as every kid on the planet wanted to be Ronaldinho. In fact, it was almost impossible to leave the house without seeing a child wandering around kicking a ball with Ronaldinho 10 printed on the back of their shirt. The star's combination of La Liga dominating flair and productivity meant that few footballers could claim they deserved the Balon d'Or more than the Barca star. But whilst the Brazilian lit up the pitch without even trying, the very next year, the Balon d'Or was awarded to an Italian who, well, let's just say brought out the darker side of football, and his name was Fabio Cannavaro. Now, let me be clear, nobody on earth could argue that Cannavaro isn't one of the greatest defenders of the 21st century. Who could forget his leadership, positioning, and tackling that inspired Italy to unlikely World Cup glory in 2006? But Cannavaro's 2006 win was the triumph that wasn't supposed to be sparking a bitter taste in the footballing world. The World Cup marked the final tournament of greats like Ronaldo Nazario and Zinedine Zidane, and all fans dreamt of the fairy tale ending where one of the duo became triumphant again. R9 shone during the tournament's early stages, but he was ultimately humiliated by the brilliance of a 36-year-old Zidane in the quarterfinals. But the French midfielder produced one of the most spectacular World Cup performances of all time as he gracefully pirouetted, twisted, and turned past some of the game's greatest players. After 5 goal involvements and a flurry of world-class performances in the tournament's knockout stages, Zidane was on the brink of the World Cup and an almost certain Balon d'Or triumph as France led Italy 1-0. But Cannavaro's defensive strength prevented Zidane from running wild in his final game as Italy got back into the game and took the match to extra time. Zizou was so rattled by Italy's defensive stability that he took his frustration out on Marco Materazzi, with minutes left on the clock as he turned and ruthlessly headbutted the Italian to the floor. The referee brandished a red card. Zidane took the slow walk down the tunnel past the shining World Cup trophy that he'd miss out on, and probably the Balon d'Or too. With the French great waiting in the changing rooms, Italy won the shootout and lifted the World Cup, meaning their most influential player, Fabio Cannavaro, was awarded a universally unpopular Balon d'Or. This isn't to say the Italians' individual recognition was unjust, but it was more underwhelming and undeniably less popular than the poetry of Zidane winning the award in his final year as a footballer. But after Zidane hung up his boots in 2006, and all-time greats like Ronaldinho, Ronaldo Nazario, and Thierry Henry entered the twilight phase of their trophy-filled careers, a new generation of Balon d'Or contenders emerged. And in 2008, there wasn't a footballer on earth more talented or popular than Manchester United and Portugal winger Cristiano Ronaldo. The 6'2" winger played with a similar flair to the legends of the first half of the decade, but combined it with obscene athleticism. During his Premier League days, Ronaldo was unrecognizable from the player who'd become a ruthless and almost robotic goal machine at Real Madrid during the late 2010s. He'd showboat his way past defenders with era-defining skill moves such as the Ronaldo chop and humiliate just about every opposition he faced. But unlike many tricksters during the late 2000s, CR7 had a deadly final product. During the 07-08 season, Ronaldo bagged a record-breaking 42 goals in all competitions as United lifted a Premier League and Champions League double. But it wasn't just the quantity of Ronaldo's strikes that gained him worldwide love, but the quality of them too. The Portuguese sensation's unique knuckleball technique made his free kicks dip and swerve in an unpredictable fashion, and even the Premier League's best goalkeepers, like David James, were unable to get anywhere near the ball as it flew into the net. So, as a result of Ronaldo's numbers, flair, and popularity, nobody in world football could argue against his 2008 Balon d'Or as he was the most popular man on the planet. But after that victory, the Portugal star would have to spend the next decade sharing the prized golden ball with Lionel Messi, as the duo dominated for Barcelona and Real Madrid and won a combined 13 Balon d'Ors, 6 Champions Leagues, and 8 La Liga titles after 2008. And with Lionel Messi himself lifting a total of 8 times, surely one of them would come with some hate, because many believed his final Balon d'Or was just a complete robbery. You see, by 2021, Messi left his beloved Barcelona after failing to agree terms on a new deal and signed for Ligue 1 side Paris Saint-Germain, and the French league was viewed as weak and something that Messi would turn into his playground. Yet things didn't quite work out like that, as he didn't really live up to the standards he set over the past 15 years in Barcelona. And with the 2022 World Cup looming, many agreed the 35-year-old was no longer a genuine Balon d'Or contender. After all, new talents such as Erling Haaland, Kylian Mbappe, and Kevin De Bruyne had been emerging for several years, and were dominating football at club level. Messi would have to do something truly spectacular at the Qatar World Cup to win an 8th Balon d'Or. Incredibly, the tournament went beyond the PSG star's wildest dreams. He produced 7 goal involvements in 6 World Cup matches, dragging his Argentina teammates to the final where they'd meet France, and Messi would come up against PSG teammate and Balon d'Or competitor Kylian Mbappe. Messi scored 2 goals at normal time before slotting in a penalty in the shootout as the man who dominated football for a decade finally got his hands on the World Cup trophy, and I can safely say he deserved his World Cup. But whilst Messi's World Cup win cemented the former Barca star as the greatest player of all time, did that really make him the greatest player of 2023? Because Leo's year was otherwise uneventful. Still, after signing for Inter Miami later in the year, Messi was crowned as the winner of the award, with the reason being the World Cup played at the back end of the previous year. And I know many players have won this award off the back of the World Cup, but there was simply a feeling of injustice when Erling Haaland scored 36 Premier League goals and led his team to the treble that season, with many supporters angered that the towering Norwegian was overlooked at the Balon d'Or ceremony. But whilst this victory brought Messi hate, we're unsure whether many of Messi's other wins can be debated, because the Argentine was out of this world for all of his 7 other Balon d'Or titles, and whilst I can't talk about every single one, I think 2009 is where he drew the most love from the footballing world as he lifted the trophy for the first time ever after quite literally completing club football. I'm talking defense-breaking dribbles, passes that no one else would dare to make, and lethal finishes made the Barca forward one of the most popular players in the history of the game. Whether supporters knew Messi would eventually win more Balon d'Ors than any player in the sport's history is up for debate, but those who already believed Lionel would become the greatest of all time had valid reasons. Messi was already showing signs that he was different from any footballer who came before him. The winger played like a fearless kid in the playground. He carried the ball past some of the best defenders in the game, dodged lunging tackles with ease, and finished with the conviction of an elite center forward. His playing style, height, and nationality reminded older supporters of Argentina and football legend Diego Maradona. And incredibly, 22-year-old 09 Messi was already more prolific than the legend he was compared to. He scored against Athletic Club and Manchester United in the finals of Barcelona's Copa del Rey and Champions League triumphs, along with striking against Real Madrid in the season's decisive La Liga El Clasico. Guardiola's Barca won the treble while playing beautiful tiki-taka football, and Messi was the crowning jewel, producing 57 goal involvements in 51 appearances and oozing natural class throughout. He was by far the most talented and influential player of an iconic 11 that would be described as the greatest team of all time, and possessed a humble, down-to-earth personality that helped the Argentine cultivate a large global fan base. Despite the continued form of nemesis Cristiano Ronaldo, most sensible Madrid fans would concede that Messi was on a different level in 2009, as his Balon d'Or triumph was met with worldwide approval that a new legend of the beautiful game had been born. And whilst Messi and Guardiola would go on to conquer world football throughout the 2010s and early 2020s, by 2024, the football world started to fall out of love with Guardiola's style of play, which is one of the main reasons why Rodri's Balon d'Or brought about so much hate when it was announced. Guardiola joined Manchester City in 2016. His possession-based game would embarrass the Premier League before he added a third league, domestic cup, and Champions League treble to his collection in 2023. Unlike the genius of 09 Messi, Rodri was effective through his simplicity. The Spanish defensive midfielder was crucial to City's treble-winning campaign as he dominated games from deep areas, controlling matches with simple passes, extraordinary vision, and elite tactical understanding. But that was 2023, and arguably Haaland and De Bruyne were more influential to the team. But come 2024, the maestro would be the most important player in Spain's Euro triumph, who'd play a similar passing game to Guardiola's Manchester City team. Rodri's impact was indisputable, but that didn't silence his haters, who critiqued his mundane playing style as incomparable to the creativity of geniuses who won the Balon d'Or in the years before him. So, when the City man beat Vini Jr. to the award in 2024, tensions were always likely to rise. The Brazilian winger was pivotal to Real Madrid's La Liga and Champions League double, scoring 24 goals in all competitions, including a strike against Dortmund in the final. It was his second Champions League final goal in 3 seasons. His adoring fans thought he was destined to finally get his hands on the elusive golden ball and become the next Real Madrid great to win the Balon d'Or. But despite having a greater presence in finals and producing a season more electrifying than Rodri's, the Spanish midfielder beat him to the prize, sparking fury among Vini, Real Madrid, and global football fans. When Los Blancos officials found out their winger wouldn't win the prestigious award, they decided to boycott the event as half of the footballing world turned into a Rodri hate club. But it's not as if Real Madrid stars never get the love they deserve, because in 2022, Karim Benzema won the prize and became one of the most loved players to ever win the award. You see, the lethal French striker spent most of his career in the shadows of Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo, and the wingers that completed Madrid's beautiful BBC received most of the plaudits for Los Blancos' 4 Champions League wins during the 2010s. But as Ronaldo departed and Bale focused on perfecting his golfing skills, Benzema finally became Madrid's main talisman, and it turned out he was just as deadly as his former strike partners. I mean, Benzema was an absolute cheat code during Madrid's unlikely run to the 2022 Champions League final. The Madridista scored impossible goals that saved his team from early elimination against Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, and Chelsea. It wasn't vintage Madrid. The side looked leggy in midfield and shaky at the back, yet Benzema consistently found a way to get his team over the line. By the time Madrid reached the final, Benzema had already scored 15 Champions League goals that season, a total only bettered by CR7's iconic 13-14 campaign. Madrid beat Liverpool 1-0 in the final, and Benzema collected his 5th and most significant Champions League title. And the Frenchman's goal scoring wasn't exclusive to European football, as he smashed 27 La Liga goals, inspiring Madrid to another La Liga title. So, after years of being belittled and suppressing his talent to let Bale and Ronaldo flourish, Benzema enjoyed the most fruitful campaign of his career, and his Balon d'Or win later that year was practically undisputed, as Benzema's story arc resonated with supporters, pundits, and players alike. All parties were relieved that the forward, who played second fiddle to his teammates, finally got center stage, and just like that, Balon d'Or Benz was born. Now, if you made it this far, you should really watch another one. The one on screen is one of my best videos ever made, so click it now.